Denmark, a small country in northern Europe, where colorful waterfront houses line historic canals, where medieval castles still stand beside modern cities, where bicycles outnumber many cars in the streets, where ancient Viking history meets one of the world's most modern societies, and where a simple idea called hygge has become famous around the world. But Denmark is much more than Copenhagen, more than bicycles, and more than beautiful Scandinavian design. Because behind its polished streets and modern lifestyle, there is a country shaped by Vikings, royal families, maritime trade, ancient castles, remote islands, wild coastlines, and centuries of Scandinavian history. For millions of travelers, Denmark is one of Europe's most attractive destinations. But here's the question. What is Denmark really like when you travel beyond the famous postcard images? Because the internet shows Copenhagen, Nyhavn, the Little Mermaid, royal palaces, bicycles, modern architecture, and colorful Scandinavian streets. But it rarely shows quiet island villages, Viking archaeological sites, dramatic white cliffs, ancient forests, remote beaches, traditional fishing towns, and some of the country's most surprising natural landscapes. So today, we are going to explore the complete Denmark Travel Guide 2026, including the best cities, hidden destinations, famous attractions, Viking history, Danish culture, local food, transportation, travel budget, safety, best time to visit, tourist mistakes, and the real Denmark beyond Instagram. Because Denmark may be small, it has an enormous story. Now, let's begin. Denmark is located in northern Europe, between the North Sea and the Baltic Sea. It is made up of the Jutland Peninsula and hundreds of islands, although only a portion are inhabited. Its geography is very different from mountainous countries like Austria or Switzerland. Instead, Denmark is famous for gentle landscapes, coastlines, forests, farmland, islands, and long stretches of beaches. But Denmark's most famous destination is its capital, Copenhagen, a city that consistently ranks among Europe's most attractive urban destinations. And one of the first things you'll notice is the bicycles. Cycling isn't simply a tourist activity here. It is a major part of everyday Danish life. Thousands of people cycle to work, to school, to restaurants, and even during winter. The city's cycling infrastructure makes it one of the world's best-known bicycle-friendly capitals. But Copenhagen has much more to offer. Start at Nyhavn, the famous waterfront lined with colorful historic buildings. What looks like a perfect postcard today was once a busy commercial harbor. Today, restaurants, cafes, boats, and pedestrians fill the area. From here, walk toward Amalienborg Palace, the home of the Danish royal family. You can also visit Christiansborg Palace, which has played an important role in Denmark's political history. And then there is Tivoli Gardens, one of the world's oldest amusement parks. Opened in the 19th century, Tivoli became one of Copenhagen's most iconic attractions. It combines gardens, rides, restaurants, music, and seasonal events. Now, let's visit another famous Copenhagen landmark, the Little Mermaid. Inspired by the famous fairy tale by Danish author Hans Christian Andersen, the statue is small, much smaller than many first-time visitors expect. But it has become one of Denmark's most recognizable symbols. And if you enjoy literature, you should learn more about Andersen. His stories have influenced generations of readers around the world. Now, let's explore another side of Copenhagen. Visit Freetown Christiania, a unique neighborhood known for its alternative culture and artistic atmosphere. Then explore the city's modern architecture, design stores, food markets, and waterfront neighborhoods. Because Copenhagen represents something important about Denmark, the ability to combine history with modern life. Ancient buildings can stand beside futuristic architecture, and traditional culture can exist alongside modern design. Now, let's leave Copenhagen, because Denmark's real character becomes even clearer when you explore its countryside. Travel north to Kronborg Castle, a magnificent Renaissance fortress near the Swedish border. This castle is famous worldwide because Shakespeare used it as the setting for Hamlet. Standing inside its historic halls, you are not simply visiting a castle, you are stepping into one of literary's most famous locations. Now, let's discover another royal destination, Frederiksborg Castle, one of Denmark's most impressive Renaissance palaces. Surrounded by gardens and water, the castle looks like something from a fairy tale. Inside, you'll find grand halls, historic artwork, and centuries of Danish royal history. Now, let's travel further north to the island of Møn. Here, you'll discover one of Denmark's most dramatic natural landscapes. The white cliffs of Møns Klint rise above the Baltic Sea, creating spectacular views along the coastline. The cliffs are millions of years old and contain fossils that reveal ancient geological history. Hike along the trails, walk through the forest, and look down toward the sea. This is a completely different Denmark from the streets of Copenhagen. Now, let's travel west to the Jutland Peninsula. Here, the landscapes become more open, more rural, and deeply connected to Danish Viking history. Visit Aarhus, Denmark's second largest city. Aarhus combines modern architecture, universities, museums, restaurants, and historic neighborhoods. One of its most interesting attractions is Den Gamle By, an open-air museum where historic Danish buildings have been reconstructed to show how people lived in different periods. Now, let's go even further back in time, to the Viking Age. Denmark was one of the major centers of Viking civilization. The Vikings were not simply raiders, they were sailors, traders, explorers, farmers, and skilled craftsmen. Their ships traveled across enormous distances, connecting Scandinavia with Britain, Europe, and beyond. Today, you can explore Viking museums, ancient burial sites, rune stones, and archaeological discoveries throughout Denmark. One of the most important sites is Jelling, often described as one of Denmark's most significant historical locations. Here, ancient rune stones and burial monuments provide clues about the country's Viking-era transformation. This is where Denmark's history becomes more than a museum display. It becomes a story written into the landscape. Now, let's discover Denmark's islands. Denmark is surrounded by water, and its islands offer some of the country's most peaceful experiences. Visit Bornholm, an island in the Baltic Sea famous for dramatic coastlines, fishing villages, round churches, and local food. Explore small coastal towns, cycle through the countryside, and discover a slower side of Danish life. Another interesting destination is Funen, often associated with traditional villages, castles, gardens, and the childhood home of Hans Christian Andersen. And if you want a truly peaceful escape, Denmark has countless small coastal communities where tourism feels almost invisible. Now, let's talk about Danish food. Danish cuisine is much more interesting than many visitors expect. Try smørrebrød, open-faced sandwiches that are a major part of Danish food culture. Frikadeller, traditional Danish meatballs, fresh seafood, Danish pastries, and locally produced cheeses. And of course, you cannot talk about Denmark without mentioning the famous Danish pastry. But modern Danish cuisine has become internationally respected, with innovative restaurants, Nordic ingredients, and a strong focus on seasonality. Now, let's discuss hygge. You'll hear this word everywhere, but hygge is difficult to translate into one English word. It describes a feeling of comfort, warmth, togetherness, and enjoying simple moments. A warm cafe on a cold evening, candles, good food, friends, and relaxed conversation. That's the atmosphere Denmark has become famous for.
And understanding hygge can help you understand why Danish culture often feels so different from other European societies. Now, let's discuss Danish design. Denmark has had an enormous influence on modern furniture, architecture, fashion, and everyday products. The Danish design philosophy often focuses on simplicity, functionality, quality, and minimalism. You can see this throughout Copenhagen, from furniture stores to public buildings. Now, let's discuss transportation. Denmark is extremely easy to explore. Copenhagen has an efficient metro, buses, trains, and excellent bicycle infrastructure. Intercity trains connect major cities, ferries connect many islands, and bicycling is one of the best ways to experience smaller towns. If you rent a bicycle, you can discover neighborhoods and countryside areas at your own pace. For longer trips, trains are